Welcome to Beyond the Diploma, where we discuss navigating the university experience in Canada and share insight and tools for success. I'm Octavian Turner, and I'm an undergraduate chemistry student at the University of British Columbia and a clinical research assistant in the Division of General Surgery at Vancouver General Hospital. Today my guest is Kiran Gill. Kiran is a fourth-year industrial relations student in the Faculty of Arts at McGill University. He transferred into the program from McGill's Desautel Faculty of Management in 2021. He's worked for the Canadian government as an administrator and a human resource project officer. He also has experience as a research assistant at the Centre for Industrial Relations and Human Resources at the University of Toronto. This fall, he studied abroad at the University of Amsterdam for 4 months. Approaching the end of his degree this spring, he's in the process of applying to a master's program in London, to McGill's Max Bell School of Public Policy, and to the University of Toronto's Masters of Industrial Relations. Today's discussion covers his experience at McGill's Desautel Faculty of Management, why he switched into industrial relations in the Faculty of Arts, how he's consecutively landed research and related work experience every summer, and his experience studying abroad in Amsterdam. Kiran Gill, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So our first section today is about McGill's Desautel Faculty of Management. Now, in my last episode, I actually interviewed another student who's currently in McGill's BCom program. So today we're not going to dive too deep into the specifics of the program, as we did in the last episode. However, I still want to know more about, some motivations for applying and generally your experience in the program. So let's just start off with a little introduction. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I was born here in Vancouver, BC, and I went to high school here. And I think I was like a lot of people, in high school. I was good at science, good at English, social sciences type of thing. I didn't really know where I wanted to go, though.
Right. So which universities did you apply to?
So I applied to actually not very many institutions. I applied to the University of Alberta, McGill, obviously, and then UBC.
Okay. Was there's something about the BCom program at McGill specifically over like maybe UBC Sauder or?
So like I said, I didn't really have any like specific direction that I wanted to go. And for me, business left the most doors open. So that's why I picked to apply to BCom programs.
Right. Do you feel there was sort of maybe like a formative experience or something that sort of maybe motivated you to apply to business? So you applied to business, but did you also apply to some arts programs?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a formative experience, I took a bunch of business classes in high school, and we had guest speakers who were really cool. We had like Chip Wilson come in, and that was really cool. I mean, he's a billionaire. He's founded all these companies, and he has a lot of interesting things to say. And I was like, this could be something I want to investigate. But yeah, to answer your question, I also applied to arts programs. So all three of those institutions allowed you 2 choices. Okay. So BCom was my first choice at all 3 of them, and then arts was my second choice at all 3 of them.
Okay. So you were only in the BCom program for a year. Mm-hmm. What did you like most about it? Was there something?
To be honest, what I liked most about the BCom program is that there were not a lot of BCom classes. First year McGill BCom program, a lot of open classes. You can take pretty much whatever you want outside of, you have to take, I think, a few math classes, an English class here. But other than that, you're free to take whatever you want, which I loved. You could like just explore all sorts of different departments and learn a lot of different things. It was cool.
Right. So first year, like me, it was our COVID year. Mm-hmm. Did you go to McGill during COVID or did you stay here? Yeah,
so I actually did go to McGill during COVID. There were no classes. I was like in a residence and doing, like you, I was doing school online.
Right, yeah. Right. So how was that? Like which residence were you in?
I was in a hotel residence. So basically McGill has like dormitory and hotel residences. Right. But because of COVID, dormitories were like too unsafe. So they only had hotel residences. So imagine it's like an old hotel and you're just, hotel room.
Were people sort of like bubbled to their floor or what was that like?
Well, so honestly, it was tough because like the thing is you wanted to socialize, but because of social distancing rules, you weren't allowed to socialize like by law. So it was either like you're like kind of scared of not interacting with the people or you're scared of getting caught interacting with people. So it was kind of a catch-22 there.
Right. So at what point sort of in your first year did you know you might want to switch programs?
I think, this is not a knock against anyone in business, but I just really didn't connect with kind of the courses at all, right? Like I took some like calculus for management and English for management, and it was just like kind of very. It didn't really seem like I was going to university for higher learning in my mind. It was more just like very like, like how do you write emails, which for sure is a really beneficial skill, but is something I was looking to like learn something more challenging, I think.
So how did you land on industrial relations? Like, did you know what that was before?
I mean, that's a good question, honestly, because, you have that conversation all the time with people. Hey, what's your major? When I have that conversation, no one knows what my major is. So I kind of fell into it because I had a really good professor in organizational behavior. And this was before I switched over to industrial relations from management. Mm-hmm. I had this professor and she kind of leads the industrial relations department. And so she was like, I was asking her, we were having a little chat after class, and she told me about this program, and she's like, yeah, give it a try. So I thought, why not? What's the harm? When
the first time I heard about IR, mm-hmm. Here at UBC, it's sort of like international relations, but on McGill's side, it's industrial relations. There's also like
there is. So if you say you're an IR, people are confused. They think it's international relations.
No one's thinking industrial relations.
No, nobody is. So it's like a little bit of a clique club we got there. So yeah.
So how did sort of the transferring program, like how did that work with the cycle, and when did you apply to transfer?
I did that in the summer after first year.
Okay.
And it was really easy. Because at McGill, I'm not sure about at other schools. I'm pretty sure it's the same at other schools. Management is way more selective to get into than arts is. So you need a much higher grades to get into management. So to go from management to arts is quite easy. To go the reverse way is quite hard.
When you were transferring, were there some courses? Because you said you kept it kind of general first year. Mm-hmm. Did some courses transfer easily?
So it was great, actually. All my courses just rolled over into arts. It was great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Well, because I was taking such general things, like the business course I was taking, they were like English for business, calculus, I still have to do math in my program. So it was useful.
Was there a tool you found maybe on McGill's site that helped you sort of figure that out, or?
Advisors, I talked to them. Okay. McGill's site is kind of, it's a little bit, it's very like circumstantial, right? So it's hard to just generalize McGill's site to your situation.
Right. Did you require like any interview or letters of recommendation to transfer?
No, it was, you had to write a motivation letter, I think.
Motivation letter?
Yeah.
Okay. So then you started in September. And now, were you a first year industrial relations or were you second year?
So the way that McGill works is McGill, all the degrees are 3 years.
Okay. And
that's to accommodate the fact that if you're a Quebecois student, you only do 3 years at McGill.
Because they do sort of those 2 years of transition.
Yeah. Right? So we have high school and then we have university. They have high school and then they have a step in between that's called CEGEP. And so doing that step allows them to skip a year of what would be a 4-year degree.
Okay. But that wasn't what you did.
No.
Because now you're in your 4th year.
Yes, now I'm in my last year.
Okay. Is there something you wish you would have known before transferring? Like in the process? Or?
I think, honestly, just the differences in the classes. I think while I was in management, it's like, it was online. I did have a few classes in person, but it was online for the most part. And it was just very uninteractive. Especially in arts, especially when you get into those higher level classes, the 3rd, 4th year classes, it's very interactive. Like you can't just like show up and be sleepy. You have to be like ready to interact, ready to talk about the readings. And public speaking is a big part of it.
So what's your advice for first the BCom and then keeping up first year? Is there something for an incoming student? Any tips you'd recommend?
In terms of studying, I would say the biggest thing is just realizing what your weaknesses are.
Okay.
So for instance, for me, I was very cognizant of the fact that I'm not very good at math. So I put probably twice the amount of work into my math classes than I did my other ones, because I knew I was fairly good at the other stuff and I could kind of compensate for taking a little bit less time on those. So just realize what your weaknesses are and work on your weaknesses instead of just focusing on your strengths.
I think that's really important because sometimes people kind of get caught up in what other people are doing and their study techniques. And I certainly ask, my friends what they do. how they study, but you have to find what works for you, you know? So what works for someone else may not work for you and your learning style. So you spent a little bit more time on math. Were you taking a lot of notes in lecture, or would you like annotate the slides? What were you doing?
So what I found over the course of my years at university is that for me personally, I actually like to actively listen as opposed to taking notes. I find notes, especially when you're taking them on the computer, is quite distracting. I mean, I think we've all been there. You know, you're on your computer, you're taking notes, and then you get distracted by something, and you're like, "Hey, what's going on in the lecture?" Whereas if you just like kind of sit there and listen, I find I absorb a lot more material. That being said, I mean, it can be different for different subjects and different people, right? I mean, I'm sure there could be like some information that you really have to write down, and then go ahead and do that, of course.
So in the BCom, of course, you know, there's some math and stat courses. Are there also some math courses in industrial relations?
Yes. So I actually have to take like social science stats,
Okay.
which is a little bit different. So in the business program, I believe, unless depending on your specialization, you just have to do calculus in a linear algebra class.
Right.
For me, they're like statistical analysis. We work with R, and we kind of like learn how to like aggregate data and use data for research purposes.
Right. For those who don't know, R is sort of a programming language that, you know, you can process data and kind of like Excel, but I think you can process larger volumes of data, right? Okay. How did sort of your studying change from the BCom to industrial relations? Did it change much?
I would say so because of what I was learning.
Okay.
I was taking a lot of economics, sociology, and arts. And so those courses, at least the way that they're taught at McGill, are very heavily emphasize memorization, which to me actually played to my strengths. I'm quite good, in my opinion, at memorization. And so I spent a lot of time just, you know, memorizing things. And for me, that's just writing them down repeatedly and committing them to memory. So it's less kind of like learning how to do something. It's more just like memorizing the information. And yeah.
Have you experimented with like flashcards or?
I have experimented with flashcards. To be honest with you, I'm not organized enough to do flashcards. So I prefer just like keep a little notebook and write in it.
What's some advice you could offer someone who's maybe unsure about their program and they might want to switch?
Honestly, what I would say is don't be afraid to switch. At the end of the day, like, sure, you can get a bachelor's in this or that, but at the end of the day, I think you're learning, and I think that's what's really important. And you'll get a bachelor's degree, and bachelor's degrees, they're not set in stone, right? You can do a bachelor's in arts, and you can become a doctor now. That's the thing you can do in Canada. So they're not set in stone. You can do whatever you want with your degree.
So I think you should follow what you're interested in and figure out early on, you know, what you're good at as well, and cater to your strengths, because I think some people maybe try to go down a route that may not be their strengths, you know. So the next section is about specifically industrial relations. We kind of talked about some of the material covered, but how does this program compare in size to some others?
It's quite small. I believe at McGill over the 3 years, there's a little bit over 100 people, maybe 125 people type of thing.
Okay. Are there some sort of smaller discussion groups with some of the courses?
Yeah, so like especially as you get third, fourth year, they're like, for instance, my classes this year are like 25 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you like most about that? Do you find it's a better experience, the smaller size? Or
I think I like the smaller size is really nice. I think it also just facilitates getting to know your peers, and it just makes you so much more comfortable in the classroom. You know, like we're talking about like political things, and it's like sometimes you don't want to voice your opinion. Yeah. But if you know your peers, you feel comfortable voicing your opinion and engaging in discourse with your peers.
Is that something you've always been comfortable with, talking in front of people?
To some degree, but I do think that talking about something that you know is very different from talking something you don't know. So I think at university, what I learned is if I prepare properly, I can talk about anything really. But it's all comes down to your preparation is what I would say.
Right. Now, is there a co-op program in industrial relations?
No, there's not. So, I mean, the closest thing, which I actually did, is there's like an internship in industrial relations. But so basically what that entails is you find a job placement yourself, and then you're able to write an essay about that job placement, how it relates to industrial relations, and then you get credit for that course. But that's the closest thing you'll see to co-op.
So it's not like a course that runs during the term that you fill with work, or?
No, so I personally did the work term during the summer.
Okay.
And then during the fall, I wrote a essay explaining how it linked to industrial relations and improved my learning.
Right. So it could have been of any duration, right?
There was certain stipulations. I believe I had to do 150 hours of work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were there some resources like on McGill's site, on the page to help you find this internship that you did?
To some degree, but it was really self-driven, I would say.
Okay. So where did you look first?
So the way that I just found I wanted to do research. So what I did is I just cold emailed people, and I got lucky. And someone said, "Hey, yeah, I'd love to take you on to do some data analysis and do a little coding." And so yeah, I got to do that, and it was fantastic.
So this is your U of T position, right?
Yeah. So at U of T.
Okay. So some of the skills you put down were like you're responsible for like data cleaning and analysis, and then reviewing interview data, coding interview data. Is that right? Doing preliminary literature reviews, creating participant profiles, data tables. So what sort of content were you working with? Like what was the data that was making up this?
So basically interviews had been conducted beforehand, and I was cleaning the data.
Interviews for what? Sorry.
So for a research project.
Okay.
That's actually still ongoing. I'm not sure what the exact result of it is yet. It's multi-year.
So this was at the Center for Industrial Relations and Human Resources. So were you working with some other students in this position, or?
No, so it was just directly. It was amazing, actually. It was directly with a prof, and it was just like me and her. She gave me a lot of direct supervision, it was great. You know, like I think we all have that experience. We're in these large classrooms, and it's like you barely know your prof. And I was having like 2-hour meetings with her pretty much like every week, so it was great.
So you were cold emailing at McGill and then also at U of T. Did you email anybody else at any other institutions?
So there's 2 sort of centers for industrial relations in Canada.
Okay.
There's one at Queen's and there's one at U of T. So those are the centers where a lot of research in industrial relations is done. Of course, at McGill, at UBC, there's probably a little bit going on, but these are like the big centers where stuff's going on. So I focus my interest there.
Okay. And this was after your second year?
Correct.
Right? Okay. So more recently, though, you worked for Indigenous Services Canada. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a bit about that position and how you got that?
Yeah, so actually I've worked for the federal government in various departments for the past 3 summers. So did you want me to discuss how I initially got
into that? Yeah, sure. Start from the beginning.
Yeah. So after my first summer, I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and I was looking for a job in the summer, as many of us are. And so I applied through the Government of Canada website. I think it might have been the job bank.
Was it like a specific like student portal, or was it more general?
It was a student portal. It's called the Federal Work Experience Program.
Okay. We'll link it in your.
Yeah, I can send over the link. Yeah. And so I applied for that, and I got an interview, and I was in. And so I was working. The first summer I was working with a lot of students across all of Western Canada, and we were processing the Canada Summer Jobs Program, which is a grant that the government puts on, helps employ young people, helps small businesses. It's a win-win sort of thing.
Right.
So that was all remote, actually. And then, so it was quite enjoyable, honestly. It was quite flexible. The work was interesting. We got to talk to other youth who were working. And we kind of, because a lot of people were on vacation, we got to basically do like a full-time employee's job. We were basically filling in for full-time employees, which was amazing. I got so much experience there.
Was there a bit of like a time difference, or could you work when you wanted, or?
You could, my boss personally she was quite flexible. So she kind of let me start whenever I wanted. Okay. So that was great. And then also days off, like I was able to work part-time, which was amazing.
So this was for all 4 months of your first university summer, or?
I think it was about 3.5 months.
About 3.5. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the contract, or you chose to work that?
I just, when I started, the start date that they set for me.
I see.
So yeah.
Okay. What was the name of that position?
I believe the name of that position was just like student at, it was just a student position at ESDC, Employment Social Development Canada.
Okay. So that was your first summer in university.
Yes.
Your second summer was your U of T research position.
Yes, but that summer I also worked for the government.
Okay. In another role as well?
In a different role, actually.
Okay. So what did you do?
So what happened there is around March, I got an email from my former boss, and she's like, "Hey, Kiran, I have a few opportunities for you if you're interested." And I said, "Oh, of course I'm interested. I'll look at these."
Yeah.
And so one was to do, basically I was working on this team that hires for citizen services officers, which are like the people you see if you need to renew your passport. So we were interviewing citizen service officers, and again, this was all over Canada, completely remote. But it was amazing. I had so much autonomy. Like I basically, they trained me and they just said, "Okay, Kiran, like run with it." And it was great. Like I loved interviewing. You get to hear people's stories, much like a podcast, we're just storytelling basically. And you meet so many unique individuals. And I really felt like this was the same summer that there was a passport officers shortage. So we were helping to deal with that. And I was like, wow, this is like great. We're like helping Canadians. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. I loved it. Yeah.
Was this second position working in the Canadian government, was it higher than your first one in terms of... Is that even an appropriate question? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm happy to answer that. Yeah, it was higher. Yeah. It was a promotion.
Okay. So what was the name of that? Do you remember?
I was an administrative services officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were doing that while you were in Toronto at the same time, or was that half the summer?
So the Toronto thing was mostly remote.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot of work that summer.
Yeah.
I was working 40 hours a week for the government, and then I was probably doing 3 or 4 hours a day on this research project, just remotely. So yeah, it was a lot of work that summer.
Okay. So then, third summer, Indigenous Services Canada.
Yes.
Okay. So did you get another email about that, or did you reach out, or...
So yeah, that was a supervisor of mine said, "Kiran, would you like a job at Indigenous Services Canada?" Okay. She used to work at Employment Social Development Canada, and she said, I liked working with you. I thought you were quite studious. Would you like to work at Indigenous Services Canada? We need some people here. Okay,
so this sounds like a great opportunity for maybe someone in the business sector, but also industrial relations, of course, to really get that first internship, because that's tough to get. Do you have any general advice about applications, what to include or talk about maybe? Because you were a first year after you applied. So what were some experiences that you had that helped you think?
I would say really it's people skills, I think, is a big thing. Because the thing is, I was working that job, I was 18, right? It can be hard to relate to, you're talking to people from all walks of life. It can be hard. You could be meeting people that you've never interacted with before in your life. And I just think being able to be professional, write professionally in emails, I think is a big thing. And just present yourself well, I think is a big thing, I will say, for interviewing, especially.
If you're allowed to share, can you share like a difficult situation and then like how you resolved it? Did something come up?
In an interview or
in an interview?
Oh, yeah. See, you always get like some of those tricky questions, like, what would you do if, like, I think one of them I got was, what would you do if you had a disagreement with your colleague? Okay, so wait, this is an interview question to you. Yes. Okay, I want to hear that, but also like when you were interviewing people. I don't know if I can tell you the exact questions that I was asking.
Not the question. Okay. But I was curious about the situation, like how you sort of managed that if there was an issue or.
So generally when I was interviewing, people were quite nice to you because I guess you kind of they're quite nice to you. We did have one problem where the person kind of they felt a little bit entitled, and that because you're representing the government, you have to be polite, you have to be courteous, but you also have to be firm. So it's striking a line between those two.
Right. Do you remember what sort of questions you got for when you interviewed? I mean,
I don't remember exactly. I mean, there's those that classic one, like what do you do if you have a disagreement with your coworker, type of thing. And I think from those questions, I think it matters to answer those questions genuinely. I think because if you don't answer those questions genuinely, you're not going to be a fit at that organization. You're not going to like it. They're not going to like you. So I think just answer those questions genuinely, and think about how to actually you would critically solve the situation from your perspective.
Okay. So if you could name maybe like 3 or 4 skills that like you came out of with these sort of positions. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is like communication, critical thinking. Is there another one?
I would say organization.
Okay.
Working for the government is very file heavy. I could be touching when I was working the human resources job. I could be touching like 200-300 files a day. So just being really organized, keeping like digitally, everything's digital, but making sure you know where documents are, because someone can ask, "Hey, Kiran, where's this?" And if you don't know where it is, it doesn't really make you look the best.
Right. What's maybe one thing that was most challenging about these positions?
I would say, I think the most challenging thing sometimes is just focusing. You're choosing what to focus your time on, right? Like especially when you have autonomy, it's one of those things where they say, "Okay, Kiran, these are your job responsibilities. You have the whole day to do them," and it's like, okay, what do I do first? What's most important? And sometimes they'll tell you what's most important, and sometimes they won't. And it's up to you to decide what's most important.
I want to hear a little bit about your experience in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
What motivated you to apply to Amsterdam specifically?
So basically, I had finished all my degree requirements at the end of third year, and I was, I could have done a bunch of electives at McGill, but I was like, this is a once in a lifetime experience to apply on exchange. You're never really going to have the chance. You can always visit a city, of course, but you're never going to have the chance to integrate, with a group of people and like with organization like that again. So that's why I applied for exchange in Amsterdam.
Why not?
Why not? Why not? Right? Well, no, I think Amsterdam it's very centrally located in Europe. I wanted to do a lot of traveling around Europe, so that worked out. I also had a friend who is going to Amsterdam, and we kind of decided that together.
Nice. How did sort of the application cycle work? Did you apply early third year?
I believe I applied around this time last year, so around the end of December. Yeah.
Okay. Were there some essays involved?
Yeah, so it's your grades and essays.
Okay. No interview?
No interview.
Okay.
Yeah, so just your grades and essays, and you just had to write, like how is going on exchange going to enrich your university experience type of thing.
Right. So I know sometimes during exchange, you can't always get credits for your degree. So like, for example, being in chemistry, some institutions, it's tough to get those transfer credits. How did that work when you were in Amsterdam?
So basically, I had done pretty much all my degree requirements. So I was just doing electives in Amsterdam.
Okay.
So those transfer over very easily with McGill. Pretty much any class you take in Amsterdam is going to give you 3 credits back at McGill, which is a full course.
I know at UBC there's sort of a Go Global program sort of offered. They kind of talk about it in co-op. But did you apply for any scholarships to go? Was there any funding?
I did apply for a scholarship. I didn't get it. Okay. It wasn't too bad in terms of financially. Like I can tell you, I was paying less rent actually than I was in Montreal.
If you're comfortable,
the rent price,
or just the cost in general, sort of the breakdown.
The cost in general. So I think for me, I think it's a little bit hard. I should probably do better, keep better track of my spending, but it's kind of hard to break down what was kind of leisure travel expenses that I wouldn't be doing and then just regular living expenses. But I would say the regular living expenses were quite a bit cheaper. Groceries were cheaper there.
Relative to McGill or Vancouver?
Well, relative to Canada. I mean, it's relative to Canada. The groceries were way cheaper. The rent was cheaper. But then obviously in the end you end up spending more money because first of all, you have to fly to Amsterdam. That's pretty far. And way more expensive than flying to Montreal. And then you're going to want to travel there, right? Like you're going to want to go see, like everything's so close. So you're going to want to go see music, like in Vancouver, we never go to a museum, right? So, but you're going to want to go to a museum. You're going to want to explore the city, and all that costs money. So I would say if you're really tightly strapped for money, you can still have fun on exchange for sure. But if you budget a little extra money, you're going to have a lot more fun, I think.
Could you ballpark it, or that'd be too tough to do?
Ballpark with tuition or included?
Yeah.
So the thing is, like, so I pay the McGill tuition.
Okay, so that's really key. So at some institutions that are sort of connected, you pay your local tuition, right?
Okay, yeah. So McGill basically has like a partnership with the University of Amsterdam, the institution I attended.
Yeah.
So basically, I'll come over to Amsterdam, and then they'll send a Dutch person over to McGill, and then they'll just equate that.
Is that what they?
Yeah.
Oh, you're asking.
No, that's how they do it.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. So you say housing was like a little bit different, it's all cheaper. Were you on campus, or were you outside in the city? Or?
I was technically off campus, but I could see classrooms from my room.
So we're talking like across the street.
We're talking across the street, literally. So I was in a shared room. So I had a roommate, and we had
like both rooms in the same bed. No, wait, both beds in the same room.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. He was a nice guy though, so I mean it worked out. But depending on personality, that can be something to consider. Also, just I consider myself fairly easygoing. The guy I was with is also fairly easygoing, but it's inevitable that you get on people's nerves. So that's something that people should keep in mind for sure.
How was sort of the community of other international students? You kind of talk to them and interact?
Yeah, so what I found is, for sure you do meet some Dutch people, and they're great, but majority of the time I was hanging out with other exchange students.
Okay. Where were they generally from? Was there like...
A lot of people from Europe and the UK. Like all over Europe. I mean, like Spain, Portugal, from the Nordic countries, Germany, a lot of Germans, Italy, and then, like I said, the UK, and then of course there's some Canadians, fair amount of Americans.
Right. Now you went with your friend, right? Mm-hmm. Did you guys try to get a place together, and that just wasn't possible, or?
No, we kind of wanted to do like our own thing, right?
Oh, okay.
So he was living in a different place, but like of course, I mean we're friends, so we went on some trips together, we hung out together, of course. Right. But so yeah, he was like studying science, which is actually a different campus than the one I was at, so it kind of didn't really make sense to live together.
Okay. What was it? This was your first time to Amsterdam, right?
I did go to Amsterdam once when I was younger.
Okay. So different experience now, though.
Different experience for sure. Yeah.
So what was your favorite part?
I would say, this is going to sound a little cliche,
okay.
But I would say the people. Like I think you really don't get to connect. I mean, for sure. I mean, Canada is a very globalized country, but you don't really get to connect with like people from like different cultures and who have like different ways of thinking than you, and they're raised in different ways. And I think it's really cool. You can learn so much from other people and just getting to know them and their point of view.
I know when I went this summer, it kind of felt like people were like happier. Is that a bit of an overstep, or? I
will say I do. Like, for sure, like, you notice people are, like, they're generally, like, they're excited about their lives.
They kind of have this energy.
They have this, I think it could be, like, a certain, like, culture around work. Like, from what I understand, the culture around work in the Netherlands is, like, at 5, people just, like, leave. And they go home, or they go out with their friends, or they go to the bar, or they're, like, go into the gym. Like, they separate their work. They have a work-life balance. Yeah.
Something I really like about Amsterdam and some other European cities is that on every corner, there's always something going down, like there's a restaurant, cafe, you know what I mean? Like here in Vancouver, even downtown, it's kind of like, I told my brother this and he disagreed, but I think kind of downtown's almost like suburban because there's like some, parts where it's just like towers and stuff and you got to walk a while. But when you're downtown, like Amsterdam, every corner there's something, For sure. I agree with you. I think in Vancouver, at least, it's quite constrained. Yeah. Like there's nothing going on in the street. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like you notice there's like the terraces are awesome. Like, I mean, on the canal, there's terraces. You can have a drink, have a meal, play cards with your friends. It's great.
And were you biking a lot?
Oh man, I was biking.
Wait, the donkey bikes.
Yeah, honestly, they're hard. Like if you go to Amsterdam,
Yeah.
make sure you give yourself like a little bit of leeway.
Wait, what do you mean hard?
They're hard to ride. Like so we have handbrakes obviously here in the bikes we ride. They're back pedal brakes, so it takes a while to get used to. I'm not gonna lie, I may have crashed a few times.
Don't you always use back pedal brakes when you're biking?
I mean, you may do that.
What do you do?
I handbrake.
Oh, wait, what do you mean back pedal brake?
You back pedal to brake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not on the bikes I rode. I rode some normal bikes.
Oh, okay. Maybe you got the good stuff there.
Yeah, but they also have Lime scooters too, or maybe another brand. Some other cities.
They do have electric scooters.
I think those are crazy. Like at night, you go with some friends. That's fun. What's something that you didn't anticipate happening on the trip? Something that surprised you?
I would say the amount that I traveled for sure. Like I thought, I'm gonna be in Amsterdam the whole time, but I think that just like the opportunities to travel are immense, and it's just like it's not something like Vancouver. Vancouver's like not very close to any other major city. Whereas like you can like hop on a train there or hop on a bus and like be in like a different country, different culture in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas like you hop on a bus here for 2 hours, you're in like Abbotsford, right? So,
were you always carrying your passport with you then?
No, that's the great thing. So Europe has like something called the Schengen zone, which allows free travel without a passport.
Yeah, that's right.
So you can just like I was on a bus, I fell asleep, and then I'm like in Belgium.
So you never took any flights anywhere?
I did. So for places that required a flight, so to Ireland, I took a flight.
Oh, you visited Ireland.
Yeah.
Where else did you go?
So I went to Ireland. I went to the UK. I went to France, Germany, Luxembourg, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden.
All in 4 months.
Yeah, all in 4 months. It's very doable. Oh, I also took the plane to Denmark and Sweden, of course.
Oh yeah. Where'd you go in Sweden?
So I just went to like the big city, Stockholm.
Okay, that's cool. I want to go there. So was 4 months enough, do you feel?
I think for sure, like at the end of December, I was kind of like, I kind of want to go. I want to go back home. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel when I go on trips, I never feel like fully sort of satiated with the experience. I always feel it's cut too short. But so you found that balance. You're like, I've done everything I wanted to do. How'd you feel like that?
I think the thing is just sort of, I don't want to say I had a list in my head of things I wanted to do, but I was like, at this point, I kind of feel like I'm living here, and I'm like, like it gets less exciting when you're like living there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for instance, like when people come to Vancouver, they like ooh and ah over it, and we're just like, it's Vancouver, right?
Before we started, you're talking about sort of the clubs and stuff. Mm-hmm. There was this one sort of town nearby that you said was really good. What was it?
So yeah, Rotterdam has a very lively social scene, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's also like Rembrandt Plaza.
Oh yeah, Rembrandt Plaza. It's an area where they have like a bunch of restaurants and bars and things going on. Rembrandt Plaza it's interesting. Yeah.
When I was there, we were kind of midweek, and I was like, oh, clubs will be open. So we go on a Tuesday at like 11 p.m. Because like we thought it'd be good. There was like 5 people on the dance floor, and then I was like, hold up. This is Amsterdam. People don't go out till like 2, 3, Did you have an experience like that?
So yeah, I mean the lateness thing is something I had to get used to. I never really got used to it. To be honest, I was like, oh my God, I can't stay out until like 5 a.m. I did that like once, twice, and I was like, it's horrible. It ruins your entire sleep schedule. And I was like, I can't get on board with that. I don't want to party that bad that I'm going to stay up until 5 a.m. So
when people go out like that, do they just power through? Or they go to bed and then wake up? Or like
they just drink a lot of caffeine and then they go to bed and yeah.
They sleep the whole next day though.
People drink like coffee and Red Bull at like 10 p.m.
Yeah. What's your advice for students who want to study abroad?
I would say be open to new experiences. Don't sort of have a planned out in your head. I did this to some degree. and I kind of be open to new experiences, be open to new people. At home, you may not hang out with certain people. At home, you may not be into art, or you may not be into like rock climbing or something like that. But be open to new experiences. I think that's really how you're going to maximize your time abroad.
And most people are pretty friendly, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like being, I would say it's like being in first year again. Everyone's friendly, everyone's chatty.
Yeah. I don't want to say like, not you, but like as an international student, you might stand out and, you know, like don't fear approaching maybe.
Yeah, don't fear approaching. I think, yeah, for sure. I think most people are friendly, especially when they know you're not from there. Most people are going to be, hey, like welcome, and like try and like do their best to make sure you enjoy your time on exchange.
What's something maybe you wish you would have known before going?
I would just say, I think like the thing is schooling systems can be different. So in the Netherlands, there's a lot of, to be honest, I was like, oh, I'm not at McGill. It's going to be, it's going to be like a break from school. And I was very wrong. There was a lot of projects, which are quite time intensive. So, you know, I realized I'm going to have to put a lot of effort into school, and I was like, okay, just be open to the fact that things are different, things work differently. Even something as simple as like in class, in the Netherlands, we addressed our professor